The word tsunami is Japanese for a harbor wave and is a series of ocean waves resulting from a large-scale disturbance of seawater. It can be caused by earthquakes, volcanic activity, or landslides. While for some the idea of a tsunami may seem to be a foreign concept, history shows that tsunami waves washed into Bridgetown generated from the tele-tsunami created by the Great Lisbon earthquake. More than 75 tsunamis have been recorded in the Caribbean and adjacent regions over the past 500 years, with the most recent one being as a result of the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. With this in mind, the Department of Emergency Management and the Coastal Zone Management Unit, both co-chairs of the Technical Standing Committee on Coastal Hazards, are ensuring that residents are prepared and aware of the tsunami hazard.
Since 2005-2006, we established the National Tsunami Preparedness and Mitigation Program here in Barbados. And that gave us the platform for which we actually pursued the Tsunami Recognition Program. This involves the hazard monitoring and detection for tsunamis. It also involved the warning and dissemination of alert messages to the population, communication of the messages via various media to the Barbadian population, as well as what we call preparedness, education, and a resilience program aimed at educating persons about the hazard, what they need to do to respond to the particular hazard, and how they can inform themselves, raise awareness within the community and the wider society as it relates to any responses to the tsunami as well as the earthquake hazard. Why I say the earthquake hazard here is because the literature has shown that 82% of the world tsunamis are generated as a result of seismic activity.
Disasters can happen at any time with very little and sometimes no warning. Hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis, flood, volcanoes, tornadoes, and fire are a fresh reminder that hazards can strike at any time, and no area of the country is immune. Whenever a hazard is approaching or occurring, take the necessary precautions to keep you and your family safe and sound. Pay close attention to all bulletins and updates from the Department of Emergency Management, and make sure you have an adequate supply of non-perishable items, medication, and plenty of water, as well as knowing the location of your nearest emergency shelter. Disasters can occur in the blink of an eye. The right precautions could save your life. Prepare and be aware. This message is brought to you by the Department of Emergency Management.
Tsunami Ready is a voluntary community recognition program. It promotes tsunami hazard preparedness as a collaboration between local emergency management agencies, community leaders, and the public. Here on the island, signs have been placed in communities from Sherman, St. Lucie to Mullins, St. Peter, highlighting evacuation routes and the natural warning signs of a tsunami. It's all part of the awareness effort.
The houses are very close to the sea, and when the sea gets rough, the sea comes over the road. Sometimes it dumps quite a bit of sand in the road.
Some of the coastal communities within the St. James North DEO would be the Western Lower Calton, Mullins, and Roadview.
Director of the Department of Emergency Management, Kerry Hines, explains why these communities were chosen.
The committee at the national level would have sat and discussed various options as it related to pursuing the Tsunami Recognition Program. Of course, we looked at the various communities and coastal communities which were hazard prone to tsunamis, the possibility of tsunamis. We tried to ensure that we focus on a community where you had some semblance of a community disaster risk management presence, and this is as it relates to our district emergency organizations. We have 3 active community district emergency operation organizations in this particular area from Sherman's to Mullins. And that figured greatly when we made our selection as it related to a community in Barbados.
Feel a strong earthquake? See the sea withdraw an unusual distance? Hear a strange roar? Leave the beach immediately if any of these signs occur and run to higher ground. Be tsunami smart. Know the natural signs. There may not be enough time for a tsunami warning.
So what is the Tsunami Ready program?
The Tsunami Ready program was established in the Caribbean through a phased approach. And this was under the regional grouping, as I said, the Caribbean and adjacent regions tsunami early warning system. We also look at other coastal hazards as well. Barbados would have signaled to UNESCO IOC their interest in having the Tsunami Ready program being implemented. We would have carried out some measure of procurement of funds, and therefore through the DIPECHO project, we were able to actually support Barbados in this initiative. And this was really run through the EU Commission funded, as well as through the support of our regional partners over the period 2018 to 2020. So it's really a 18-month to 2-year initiative that we ran.
The Coastal Zone Management Unit played a key role in the communities achieving their Tsunami Ready Recognition status.
Well, we're very proud to have worked with DEM to achieve that recognition. And what we actually did was we used a lot of the data that we've amassed as part of the Coastal Risk Assessment and Management Project, which is a project we're just concluding now, to assist in the ability to better map the study area, which was from Mullins to Sherman's, and to also look at the type of information that would be required to help prepare the coastal communities along that segment for any potential hazards that could arise as a result of tsunami.
Identifying and designating the hazard zones was also an important component of achieving the status.
Using the mapping system, once you're able to identify the areas that are going to be inundated or flooded as a result of the penetration of the tsunami wave, what you then do is you then, having identified how far inland it could potentially run, you then have to look for the shortest route for everybody to get to higher ground. And that involved a lot of stuff with the communities, whereby the team from DEM and our counterpart staff here at Coastal and the consultants that were on the ground also went into the field with members of the district emergency organization officers, as well as some members of the community that knew routes, and then they tracked the routes using roads and pathways and stuff that are within communities to find the evacuation routes.
But how was the Coastal Zone Management Unit able to do all this work? It was done through the NCRIP.
The NCRIP is the National Coastal Risk Information Planning Platform, and yes, it did, because what it did was it provided us an opportunity to actually look at the actual value of the properties along the area that could be inundated, and providing a real economic value. It might not be as up to date as we would like, because I think the data we have is like from 2015, 2016, but it still gives you a feel in terms of the potential amount of damage, in terms of economic value that could be lost in terms of real estate. And the locations that would have the greatest level of inundation would then be the ones that could be at priority, not only for evacuation, but more importantly for economic, looking at opportunities for economic recovery and rebuilding, etc. The thing that surprised a lot of people was that even when we had done the public consultations, everyone thought that the flood area was going to be much wider than it actually turned out to be, right? And the reason for that was because when you're looking at the extent of penetration, you're actually looking at the contours of the land. So once you start to get, if the area is very flat, the wave will travel very far in once you model it, right? And obviously it depends on the type of model that you run and the size of wave that's coming in, etc. And in some areas of the coastline, that was very close, in essence, to the coastal road, because everyone knows that once you're in that area, once you start to get off of Highway 1, and you start going, everything starts to go uphill almost immediately. So there's very little room for penetration along much of the coastline itself. And that surprised a lot of people, because, you know, everyone always sees things like the Indonesian tsunami or the one that happened in Japan and all this sort of thing, and how it maintained for 6 and 8 miles. But that's because the coastal land was very flat. This work in its own right was very unique, because this is the first time that we've actually done a detailed sort of like tsunami mapping for an area. And because of the type of area that it was, where it covered not only high income and tourism residential areas, but it also dealt with commercial businesses and a town center, and then going into a more rural setting when you're heading into like Sixpence and Sherman.
Having met all the criteria, Barbados moved to have its work evaluated.
Barbados would have carried out their measure of fulfilling the guidelines. The guidelines range from mitigation, so having the requisite maps, tsunami inundation and tsunami evacuation maps, the level of signage that's required, tsunami hazard signs, evacuation signs, and of course the protocols that were enhanced for the national level, as well as the community of Sherman to Mullins. And of course the public would have seen some of the efforts as it relates to the Carib wave, and also of course the Tsunami Ready ceremony. And we would also like to indicate the involvement of the youth, the schools. There was a competition as well for the schools that was implemented, and these are all elements of raising that level of preparedness. And UNESCO IOC would have worked hand in hand with the government of Barbados.
So now that the communities have acquired the designation, one may ask, is that the end of it? Not at all.
There's a measure of high sustainability, and over the next 3 years we will be monitoring the work of the community, because we will be back to have a renewal in 3 years.
Sherman to Mullins is one of 15 communities in the Caribbean throughout 11 countries that have achieved the Tsunami Ready designation.
Some of these designations are what we call country or territory wide. For example, we have Anguilla, we have the British Virgin Islands, and we have St. Kitts and Nevis that have been designated as the entire territory. We also then have many of our local communities. We mentioned Sherman's to Mullins in Barbados. In Grenada, for example, we have the parish of St. Patrick's, and we also have the parish of Carriacou and Petit Martinique. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have Union Island. And in Haiti, we have Fort Liberty.
Each of the communities that took part in the journey to tsunami recognition had their own unique challenges, ranging from severe flooding to the sea and sand coming into the road along the coastline. So what does being tsunami ready mean for these communities?
People have taken note of it because the signs are there. There have been a lot of information on the television, and fortunate for us, nothing haven't happened as yet, but there are evacuation points, quite a few evacuation points, and everything is there for people to adhere to the signs and the information that they get.
Tsunami Ready does not guarantee that tsunamis will not occur, but what it does is that it builds that awareness, that and capacity, and enhances persons to be able to save their own lives, to save property, to help save someone else's life as well, because we all have a community approach.
With the information that was shared to us pertaining to tsunamis and all the signs that were put up, people are really looking at them now. Because of the technology and you see what happened overseas, they are more aware, or getting more aware of what can affect Barbados in the time of a disaster.